So yeah, you had these older men around her that she manipulated.
And a lot of these came from her childhood. Her father worked in the State Department or something, and he knew all of these famous former generals. And how did that, because that was the thing that we would laugh about. Like, we'd look at her board, I'm talking about the investment community, whatever, and be like, okay, who's on the board? Is it Bill Gurley? Is it
Right.
Michael Moritz? Is it Doug Leone? Is it like whatever famous, John Doerr? And it was like, no, it's Henry Kissinger and these other generals. Right. And it's like, a general is on your board, or some senile old diplomat is on your board. It makes no sense.
So the family connections were a factor in several ways. One is that for a couple years in the late 80s and early 90s, the Holmes family lived in Woodside, California, near the Stanford campus, and were neighbors with the Drapers, Tim Draper.
Yeah.
And so Elizabeth and Jesse Draper became friends.
Tim Draper's daughter.
Tim Draper's daughter, Jessie Draper, and Elizabeth were good friends and remained friends. And then when Elizabeth dropped out of Stanford at 19 in late 2003, the first person who cut her a check, $1 million check, was Tim Draper.
Wow.
So that was a family connection. Another family connection was that her father, who indeed had been in government, had spent most of his career in public service, worked for the State Department, USAID, had gone to Wesleyan, and one of his best friends at Wesleyan was a high-ranking official at the World Bank. And that guy knew Don Lucas and introduced Elizabeth to Don Lucas. And Don Lucas met with her and was impressed by her lineage, namely the fact that she was a descendant of the Fleischmann Yeast dynasty. Fleischmann Yeast Company is a company that was created in the late 1800s by two Hungarian immigrants. And 20 years later, by the turn of the 20th century, the Fleischmanns and the Holmeses became one of the richest families in America. And
all that money was spent, though, after generations.
Right.
Elizabeth didn't benefit from that.
No, because Elizabeth was actually made very aware that, of the success of these older generations of the family, but also of the failures of the younger ones. Namely, her father's grandfather and his father had really squandered what was left of the family fortune. And so I think she was very influenced by these stories. She wanted to reclaim that place in society and that wealth. I think that was one of the things that was going on. But in any case...
There was this really great quote that you had where somebody asked her in her youth, like, do you want to marry the president or something? And she said...
Yeah, someone asked, a relative at a family gathering when she's 9 or 10, asks her, what do you want to do when you grow up? Pretty much the question everyone is asked when they're a kid at some point or another. And she says, I want to be a billionaire. And she's not kidding around. She's looking really intent. These aren't the idle words of a child.
Yeah.
And the relative says, well, don't you want to be president? And she says, no, because I'll have $1 billion, and so the president won't want to marry me.
Yeah. It's completely logical for a 10-year-old to think this.
And she really wanted, to be a successful entrepreneur from a young age. She wanted to be wealthy. She wanted to reclaim the glory, of the Fleischmann dynasty.
So it was like this personal thing. And then she grew up around all this royalty with some tech royalty. And she had some amount of entitlement, I would think.
I mean, I think she also had good motivations in that her father, as a public servant at the State Department, had helped with humanitarian efforts. And so there were pictures around the house of him, in war-torn countries. And, he always emphasized to her that she should live a life of purpose. And I think this became in her mind, how do I become not just rich, but do good as I get rich? And biotechnology was an answer to both. Get rich in biotechnology and create a product that will change medicine, that will make people's lives better, and that will be good for the good of humanity.